Andrew Gilman with us now on the Little Caesars Hot and Ready Hotline.
I trust Andrew Gilman.
Yeah, me too.
You know what? I was listening to you guys a little while ago, and Happy New Year to both of you, of course.
Oh, bless you. You too.
I actually have been preaching the same thing that Todd said the other day, which is, you should schedule like Baylor. And it sounds bad. It doesn't pass any eye test. But man, why make it harder on yourself? If you're already in a
because you lose your margin of error. You lose it.
So what? So what? I mean, you lose your margin of error.
So you don't make the Final Four. Guess who does? Teams with one loss who do schedule tough.
Eliminate the chances of you losing games.
I think it's far easier to give yourself a margin of error by scheduling tougher.
Who did OU beat in 2000? Nobody cares who OU beat in 2000 on the way to the national championship.
But they wouldn't have made it there had they lost one game.
But they didn't lose a game.
Exactly, I understand.
The
but
chances
again,
of losing when you schedule those.
Yeah,
guys.
Andrew, what I'm telling you is, and we can just agree to disagree. I think because I think there's room for both arguments. I think there's intelligent arguments on both sides of this. But I guess if I could put this all into one.
You're walking off with this, okay?
If I could put this all into one bow, and I'll let you react. If I could put this all into one bow, I just think for me, if you schedule light,
yes,
it doesn't guarantee you go undefeated. In fact, the chances, at least in my opinion, the chances of you going undefeated are still less with a crappy schedule than they are of you scheduling tougher and only having one loss.
No, you're right. Your argument is the logical and sane one, and it's the percentage plus.
But not the right one, according to you.
It is the right one some of the time. My feeling is you can't do you have to if you're Boise State, you have to schedule tough. Sorry, that's just the way life is for you. And it's not fair. It just isn't if you're Boise State, and it's hard to schedule Ole Miss because they don't want to play you. And Ole Miss, they did beat Boise this year, and Boise had a fine season. They ended up being a really good team. Hard to imagine that anyone thinks OU's better than Boise State at this point. I wouldn't think so. But the fact is, if you're Oklahoma or Ole Miss, you don't have to do that. You get the benefit of the doubt a lot of the time. And the system is bad. The game is rigged against Boise and these smaller teams and the smaller conferences. It just is. So my feeling is it is way better for the fans to have Tennessee come in here in September than Northwestern State. It's just not as fun for Northwestern State. But, man, if I'm Bob Stoops or somebody like that, I love the idea of getting to all I have to do is win my conference games. Just win the conference games. And I know you could lose them, but you still have to get help. There's no guarantees either way. You still have to get help if you lose. So eliminate the chances of losing games. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and my deal, too, is if you're undefeated, you're going to be one of, 3 teams at most we've seen before with USC, Auburn, and Oklahoma that one year.
Auburn got screwed. They did.
But you're gonna get in the Final Four if you're undefeated. You've said as much, Zach. You would put
that's right.
Any undefeated team from a Power 5 conference in the Final Four.
Zach's argument is if you lose once, you might get in too, and you're exactly right. You might get in, but you might not. You
exactly.
Just know for sure you're getting in.
If you lose once, you're gonna have to beat some other team on an eye test, basically.
And you can. And
with the committee,
you would win that eye test about 9 out of 10 times. I bet they would because they get a lot of bump from being OU.
I think Zach's argument is actually a better argument if computers are involved.
Yes, definitely.
With humans involved, I think you still need to win an eye test, and going undefeated is always going to be a better.
Kansas State was within the. Michael Bishop makes a play against Texas A&M in that Big 12 championship game. Kansas State's in, and they didn't play anybody. And Baylor would have been in if they hadn't lost and there was no computers involved. They would have been in. In fact, you guys said if they had lost to Notre Dame, I think if they had lost to Notre Dame instead of TCU, they would have been in. They would have gone undefeated in conference.
Well, that proves my point.
No, yeah, I know. I'm just saying that. But you need help. You need help, and it changes. It's fluid every year on who's good and who's not good and all those sort of things. So if you know this for sure, in any given year, if you're undefeated, you're in.
And let me say this, for all the BCS, the old BCS examples that we're throwing out there, that came with the caveat that if you lose late, it hurts you more, where I don't think that's necessarily the case with this. Is it with this new system?
Not. No,
I think when you just look at a full resume,
we don't know what the criteria is. There is no criteria.
Right.
12 people in a room.
It's so subjective, right?
And I don't mind that. I don't mind subjective because
when you
that means it changes.
You especially don't know what the criteria is when TCU goes from 3 to 6.
Which makes mine and Todd's point, which is, this criteria, if you don't lose, you're in. Who cares what anyone else says? You're in. Unless you're Boise State. Then you're out.
Andrew Gilman joins us on Little Caesars Hot and Ready Hotline on 107.7 The Franchise. Well, let me do Thunder first, and then we'll go back to what happened in college football yesterday, because I know you want to talk about that. Well, at least I'm going to guess you want to talk about that.
Okay.
The Russell Westbrook ejection. Where do you fall on that?
Here's how silly and ridiculous. I couldn't figure out what was going on. It happened right in front of me. I mean, I had the seat for it, so it was right in front of me. And what's going through my mind after it all ends up is like, I got to go to Twitter and find out what happened. I couldn't figure it out. I mean, it happened in front of me, and I had no idea what was going on. It was just all of that information at once, and it was hard to sort of put in place. But
that's so sad. That's so sad. Why? I mean, why don't you have your own damn opinion with what you saw?
But my first thought was, I rely on. It was so much information all coming at me at once, and I wasn't smart enough to compute it. Now that I've sat back and thought about it, I have been able to do that. But in the moment, I wasn't good. I'd be a horrible state's witness. I can guarantee you that. Because if you give me a second to try to figure everything out, I'm not smart enough to do it. But ultimately, the big picture is that Russell Westbrook is who he is. And he oftentimes, and we've heard this from Scott Brooks a bunch in the last couple weeks, is you got to get better control of your emotions. And when you've got one technical foul already, whether he deserved it or not, he got it from that sort of tussle with Alex Len, then you just don't chirp. I mean, did he deserve it? Probably not. But just don't do that and put yourself in that situation, and it doesn't come up. It's just silliness on Russell Westbrook's part, if you ask me.
Well, you are kind of consistent. Just keep yourself out of those situations. You're saying that with Westbrook, and you're saying it with the college football playoff. Just don't put yourself in a situation to lose.
Well, that's how I deal with most life's problems. Actually, don't ever be in any sort of sticky situation. Yeah. Avoid them all.
Don't worry about winning. Just please don't lose.
That's right. That's exactly how I go through life. It's just I'm all on the defensive all the time.
We had a question on our Take It or Leave It today, Andrew, and let's see where you fall on it.
Okay.
Someone said, take it or leave it. If Durant had been tossed right before halftime instead of Westbrook, the Thunder would have lost to the Suns.
I thought about that. I take that. I agree with that because Durant is a steady, calming influence most of the time. Now, does he lose his emotions from time to time? Yes, but not enough where you see it as, if he does it, it's an exception. When Russell Westbrook does it, it's sort of, that's the trend. That's what he does, whether it's against Portland, where he sort of lost his way in the last 5 minutes and didn't pass, or against the Mavs, where he turns it over and then fouls Dirk 90 feet from the basket, which is as sure as 2 points as you can get in the NBA, or what he did the other night. It didn't cost him the game, but it had a large impact to do with what happened in that game. Now, they didn't defend the three very good in the first half, and there's all sorts of other things. But you want Durant in there if you had to choose one of the two.
Well, it sounds like you're saying it's Russ's team.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you could sort of extrapolate that from it. Is there a player that you want with the ball charging to the basket more than Russell Westbrook? Probably not. But he doesn't make sound decisions a lot of the time. And there's more good than bad that comes out of that. But, man, you can't just get yourself kicked out of a game, no matter what the reason. You can avoid those situations. They're all avoidable.
Andrew Gilman with us. All right, what stuck out to you about the college football playoff, if anything, yesterday?
I didn't watch any of the second game. How about that? That's what stuck out to me, first of all.
Why?
I went to a play.
Book of Mormon?
Yes, I did.
That's all the rage. Book of Mormon. Was it good?
It was irreverent, I guess is the term. Yes. You know what I mean by that, right?
Well, yeah, but does that mean it was good?
It was fascinating, yes. I enjoyed it. But most of the time when I go to a play, I catch myself saying, this is better than a movie. Why? But I like to try to add a little culture, and you know what? If my wife wants to go to a play, I want to go to a play.
So you went you went to a play yesterday evening. What'd you do yesterday, I don't know, late morning, early afternoon?
Watched a little bit of the football, and it was glorious.
Which game?
Very
Michigan
satisfying.
State Baylor?
Michigan State Baylor.
We have not even talked about that today yet.
You know what, Cam?
Moly.
I think the best game of the day, and probably Todd would agree, would be the White Hart Lane home crowd cheering on the Spurs.
The Spurs against Chelsea. That's right.
That's the one.
5-3.
What a game. And you know what? Honestly, if American fans tuned into that, they would have thought, I like.
Wait a minute. Stop. Just stop real quick. Just stop, because if we're going to do this, we might as well just
explain to your audience.
Just give it the proper due. Go ahead, Todd.
Todd is an international superstar. He's well-versed in Italian cuisine, Asian-made vehicles, and European soccer. Excuse me, football. But management frowns upon Todd's soccer talk. Ah, screw it. Let's sneak in.
This is all you get, Gilman. This is it.
Here's 10 seconds of soccer with Todd Lisenbee.
I defer to Andrew Gilman.
Starting now.
Go.
Excellent. We got the Spurs just a point away from Champions League qualifications, climbing up the table with a 5-3 win against Chelsea at home.
And that was 10 seconds of soccer.
I missed the post.
See you later, buddy. We'll talk to you
right,
later. All right, man. Andrew Gilman on Little Caesars Hot and Ready Hotline.